Welcome to the village.
I'm going to sign out today is dressing sense, what it has to do with cultural norms and beliefs and what people feel like they have to dress like versus what they want to dress like and what it means. And we thought it'd be a good topic to bring up today because we're both dressed up completely differently for a wedding. So I'm wearing this gown. Okay. My gown is a full-length gown, and Mary is wearing a dress.
That's not full length.
Yeah, wearing sparkles and things.
I'm basic.
The invitation said formal.
Yeah, this is my formal.
So that's formal to you, and this is formal to me. Is it an expectation, a cultural norm, or is it a personal preference? Mm-hmm. What made you pick this? Even though, like, I've asked you all week, every day, what we were wearing to this wedding, and you didn't care because you only wanted to know where you're going to charge your Tesla.
Yeah, those are facts. I picked this dress because it had sleeves, and the material was thick enough for me because I knew I was going to be cold. Why did you pick your dress?
I picked the dress because, to me, formal on an invitation for a wedding means that you have to wear something long and more elegant. And I usually wear long dresses anyway. Mm-hmm. If I wear short dresses, I wear them with leggings because I don't show my legs.
Mm. Well, I guess that brings up the good point of what we're talking about today and about what is expectation, social norms versus personal preferences.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't even see that part on the invitation of like formal attire, honestly. You know, my eyes don't gravitate to that. Maybe your perspective is different. The number one thing for me when I dress, I think now in my 40s more so than before when I was in my 30s or 20s, the one word to describe it would probably be comfort.
So you look for comfort even for a formal function like a wedding or something?
Yeah. Before, maybe like I would say still up to like my 30s, I would probably look more for how it looked. But now I'm just like, is this just comfortable? Yes. Because like I said earlier, it has sleeves, it has all the things that I look for, which is I'm not going to be cold in it, and can I dance and move around in it comfortably?
You didn't dance much. Why didn't you dance that much today?
Because I started to get acid reflux. That's being 40. Like, that's what happens. When you're in your 20s, you could jump around after you eat dinner, but I can't. I have to wait 2 hours after.
God, we're so tired because we're doing this wedding all day long.
Yeah.
Because first we went to the church. I just thought about the chance to be really dressed up at a dressy function. You would never wear something like this otherwise. So, and I like wearing things with sequins and that also comes from when we say culture. I'm Indian and we get really jazzed up for everything. Yeah. In fact, my mother would probably be like, why are you wearing no jewelry? But to me, it's like I'm wearing jewelry. Yeah. In Indian culture, they just, like, both arms are filled with bangles and all the big necklace and stuff. I knew that's not going to be appropriate for non-Indian weddings, so I just put a little bit of jewelry on. Yeah. But to us, it's like you get really dressed up, you know, you wear your best stuff and perfume and everything. Yeah. So I think that's part of just a cultural norm.
Well, yeah, I guess that's why we're having this conversation, because is that what is supposed to be normal? Can you as a woman go to a wedding and still wear like pants or like a dress suit?
I think you can wear that stuff now, right? That's like if it's dressed up enough, that's acceptable. Well,
like as a society or like in general, like as women, like are we all expected to be more feminine with the way we dress? Does that define your femininity? Because like if you're not wearing a lot of jewels or makeup, does that still make you not feminine? I think that's the question, and right, because there's different definitions of what formal is for certain people. Maybe for you and your culture, how you grew up, like having a lot of jewelry and stuff like that is what defines formal or being a woman in the Indian culture. Other cultures that might not be so. It might just be wearing a dress or like having high heels on or something. Who really defines that?
I think those definitions are changing a lot too.
Oh, so. For sure. And it's going to change because, you know, now we have gender identity, right? Identifying yourself with the opposite sex of what you were born with. Your gender that was assigned to you at birth may be different, right? So who's to say that you have to look a certain way on the outside.
Then that's an interesting point, right? Because when the physical aspect of the gender is something that people want to change, then they tend to dress a certain different way then. So aren't we then like, oh, that's because we're subconsciously already defining what genders look like what?
Right. But that's what we're saying. Is that fair for us to do? Because do all women have to look the same? Like, do we all have to dress up a certain way? And I don't think we do, because the way you dress is an expression of your personality also. That's, for me, what I see. I'm not comfortable wearing like a tight dress, it's like not like right at my knee or above it a little bit. Right. Whereas like other women will be very, very comfortable to do that.
But is it a comfort level or is it a discomfort? Right? Because in a way, that's the other thing with women. Why aren't we comfortable enough to cover up our bodies?
I think we are. I think the pandemic, honestly, has made a lot more women comfortable, like wearing sweatpants at home. And then being on Zoom meetings, like down here, from here on up, you look business-like, and then the joke is like on the bottom, you're wearing sweatpants for sure.
Like even like going on about why or the expectation is for more fitted clothes and more clothing that shows things off, or jeans, for example. I mean, now Gen Z is doing something totally different with their jeans. Are very baggy jeans now.
Yeah, they have the mom jeans and the dad jeans.
Yeah. But for us, it was skinny jeans and the hipster jeans and all these things that are really uncomfortable.
Yeah. It really depends on your comfort level. There's just girls who are more comfortable showing their bodies than some other girls. Growing up, you'll see girls going outside showing their bellies, mid-bellies and stuff like that. I wasn't comfortable doing that because, first of all, I wouldn't walk out of my house doing that because my dad would kill me.
Yeah.
My sister. So it really depends on how you grew up.
You use the word comfort with girls that show that stuff. But when I see it, I think the opposite. It's discomfort. They're uncomfortable covering up because there's some sort of expectancy to be attractive or to be feminine. The body parts have to be shown more. Like as soon as it gets warm out, girls are dressing more skimpy. Automatically it happens.
See, that's the thing, I think that we see it as skimpy. So other people who are not that person are looking at them and saying that is skimpy clothing. Maybe they don't see it as skimpy. It's the point of view of the person that's looking at it, right? If you're looking at a picture, there's like certain pieces of art where you're looking at it and one person will look at it and describe it one way, and then another person will look at it and describe it a different way. I see it as maybe these girls, when they look in the mirror and they're going outside and they're showing their skin, they don't see anything wrong with that. Maybe they just look at themselves and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. Whereas another girl will look at themselves in the mirror and say, well, if I go outside and wear this, I might be an object of attention and I'll get more guys looking at me. And that's creepy. So maybe I shouldn't go outside looking at this. It's all about perspective and how people see themselves in their own skin, I think. And that's how people dress, right? You essentially dress because of how you feel and how you see yourself.
If you think about it, like when I was in high school, I got called to the principal's office because we weren't allowed to wear sleeveless clothing when I was in high school, and a couple of times I just did it anyway because I used to wear sleeveless in school in high school, and I stopped doing that since then. That's because I became uncomfortable doing it. I would get sent by my math teacher to the principal's office.
Oh, wow.
That was crazy. Because we weren't allowed to. Now, the fact is, why were we not allowed to dress a certain way?
I don't know. Why did your school have a no sleeve?
There was a no sleeveless policy because they expected kids to be more modest and not to attract negative attention. That was just the idea. But that was the whole tone of decency and modesty and encouraging kids to not dress a certain way. Like shorts had to be certain. I went to like a public school in New Jersey and went to a regular basic. Those were the rules. So that was the expectation because that was the definition of what modesty was and what it's supposed to do in just a regular Jersey school, I guess that's since changed. I don't know if I definitely don't think they call kids to the principal's office anymore. Because I have some children coming to my office and teenage girls that definitely doing more than sleeveless nowadays. So
going to school like that, okay.
Yeah. That's changed because I guess now we're not allowed to tell people what to do anymore, you know. But does that change what modesty is looked at, or is it just more accepted?
I think it's more, I think it might be more accepted that.
Or is it because you just can't tell anybody anything anymore? You can't take kids' phones away from them. You can't get them to dress a certain way because it's a whole.
Well, also it's
everyone just do what they want.
It's a culture of being woke, also, right? Because our generation is the generation after our parents, which is the boomers, right? And so millennials and then Gen Zs have started this movement of being woke and empowering each other to do whatever they want. No rules, no hold bars, whatever. Whereas like we grew up in a very standardized way, right? Where like not everyone gets a trophy. And then that changed after us, where everybody does get a trophy. There's no winner. Everyone is a winner, right? And that's the culture now. It's not that they can't tell them what to do or what not to do. I think now it's that our generation, the people in our shoes who are mothers, who were raising their children, have allowed this culture that, yes, you can do whatever you want, child. You dress however you want. Because when I was your age, I was told to not go to school without sleeves. Part of it is like we did that. Our generation allowed that. I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I didn't have any problem. I had to wear a uniform every day, so.
I didn't know you went to Catholic school.
I told you, I was in church all the time. I don't think it's about what we tell the kids to do or not to do. I think it's that we have allowed this way of thinking to happen.
The thing that just constantly bothers me when we say that this is what people, now that we're allowing it, I'm still not buying it that this is necessarily, whatever we do is not always what we want to do. Sometimes we're doing it because there's a psyche within us that wants to do it, not like a comfort that wants to do it. Like when a 16-year-old girl is walking around with very revealing clothing, is it really what she wants? Or is it what she feels she needs to do to get the attention, to feel some sort of like or love, you know, she just needs some kind of attention. And she doesn't even know she's doing it.
Well, a lot of it is called social media. We also didn't grow up with social media. So I think that, unfortunately, a lot of younger people have grown up seeing certain people or celebrities or Instagram influencers or Facebook influencers, and that's what they see. And so they're like, oh, okay, if that person is liked by so many people or they have so many viewers, then it must be okay to mimic that person or to dress like that person, right? And so that's why social media is a whole nother level of conversation, because if this is what kids are growing up with watching, which is not what we grew up watching, this is what's navigating their thought process. So that's how I see it, that these kids don't actually have insight into that. And they actually don't have insight into the fact that they might actually be insecure with themselves with the way that they dress, like you're saying, because they're just literally watching constantly on their phones, TikTok and whatever it is. And they're like, oh, cool. That's the new challenge. Everyone should do it. So it's like very robotic for these kids. Whereas when we were younger, we had to think about things. We didn't have instant access and we didn't have instant answers to anything. We couldn't Google every question. So we had to actually figure it out. We had to take a bus to go to the library, and that probably was like a week later, you know. So when I think about that, our brains are different. The way you and I were growing up is different from how these kids' brains are developing.
When you did like a research, you had to spend a whole hour or two in the library just trying to figure out one fact. And you couldn't take the encyclopedias home, so you had to print copies.
Yeah, or you had to go to those disc things and go downstairs to the basement and put it in that machine to go through.
Sheet.
Yeah, you know, and that was it. Like, we were self-sufficient. We had to figure things out. And I think that made us the last generation that's able to actually think critically and insightfully and have insight into process. Sometimes having more technology makes you less reliable in the sense that, like, you're just going to go straight to the Google and
Well, it's like today when I was telling you the wedding cake was fake.
You went straight to Google.
I went to Google. I Googled 3 things during my wedding.
Yeah.
I Googled the cake, and I Googled what pancetta is. No, you Googled that.
No, I didn't. I know what it was.
I Googled it.
I know what it was.
But that instant need, like, it makes you focus less, and it makes you less patient, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're not thinking, then you're not using all of the little parts of your brain. And is it coincidence that there's more depression and anxiety?
Yeah, because
if you're not thinking.
You're not thinking, but you're also less individualized. You become part of just the masses.
There's a lot of benefits. I mean, look, we get to do a video right now, live. You know, there's a lot of good information. So nothing
on the internet,
perfect.
Which could be fake.
But I think, like, for people like us, the generation that a lot of parents are and a lot of teenagers now don't have that. So, like, we're lucky we had both sides of it. We got to see what it was like to live without it, and now we have it. So we're using it differently. But to grow up in it without knowing the difference.
That's what I mean. This is the first thing they see is just this computer or this iPhone, and they're watching people do videos, and they just automatically do it just because it's what's in. They sort of, I don't know, you might agree to that because you're a pediatrician. I feel like kids are less and less able to form their personalities or their individualism because of that, because they're like, I have to look like this, or I need to be this influencer, or I have to buy the things that this person is saying that they're buying. And this is the problem with social media.
But it's addicting. So if we know where to start it and where to stop it versus when you do get that hook and then you can't even put it down. So it's like anything. Too much of a good thing is not good. Yeah. And when you're getting to the point where you're just kind of feeling down about it.
Well, yeah, but that's what you're saying. Like, I think that girls who don't see themselves looking like that influencer will get depressed, will get anxiety because they can't look like the people that they see all the time on their phones.
And I kind of think when you do something that you've seen and then you do it, but maybe deep inside you really don't want to do it because it's not comfortable.
That's exactly what I'm saying. They don't have that insight because they're just doing things. Because all they're doing is watching Instagram feeds and TikTok feeds, and they're like, okay, they don't know how to make individualized decisions about who they really are. And that's part of the reason why there's a lot of teenage depression, because when you're a teenager, all your hormones are going crazy. And so why are these kids having more and more depression? Because they like literally are probably just really confused about who they are, and they can't figure that out because their brain is telling them through social media that they need to be a certain way, but there might be some circuits and they're going, oh, but that's not what I really want.
Yeah,
and then it's like,
exactly.
My friends are doing it.
Yeah, there's like the brain circuits.
Yeah.
Like you as a human being.
When we were younger, we were just like, we're either going to be this way or that way, because we either chose to be with this group of people or that group of people.
I wasn't with any group. I had like one friend.
But you know what I mean? I was talking to one of my medical students about that today, because she went to a high school that used to be all boys when I went to my all-girls Catholic high school. And so we were talking about how different it was for me when I went to Catholic high school and when she went to Catholic high school decades later.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about the difference of how it was. It made me think about how different the times were for us than it was for them.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, because it sounds like more difficult to be in high school during the time that she was in high school than it was for me, because there wasn't as much bullying, you know, because we didn't have these things to compare ourselves to. We didn't have the TikTokers. We didn't have influencers. We didn't have Facebook media.
It's crazy how the bullying.
We compared ourselves in person.
Yeah.
So it was like I had to see these girls every day. We were like, okay, so that's how you look today. I didn't have to turn my phone on to see how you were dressing today. You know, so I had to go to school to see how people look. And these kids can get on their phones and be like, oh, look at her, look how, oh, OTD, outfit of the day. Whereas I literally needed to go to school to look and see what everybody looked like. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, nice lipstick.
Nice lipstick.
It was more simple and real and genuine.
Yeah, I mean, I think bullying and mean people always has existed and will continue.
It will exist, but I don't think there was as much because we couldn't put ourselves on social media back then.
The social media aspect is really bad for the bullying because of the fact that it stays there. It sits there for everyone to repeatedly see.
Yeah. Like, we weren't recording each other on lives when we were in high school.
No, I thought it was so cool because I'm the one that took the pictures for the yearbook. So I was the one with the camera in the school. It's not like everybody walked around taking pictures. I was the only one taking pictures.
Yeah.
I finally got to be cool for a second. Because then the people would be like, take my picture. Yeah. Okay. So I think, Chris, what do you think about the increased anxiety in kids in secondary school who don't typically have the same access to social media yet? My son's in 3rd grade and the anxiety in him and his classmates is huge. I don't think that's because I don't think social media is the only.
It's not just.
It's not, and it's not directly. First of all, it's not just social media. It's the whole world, and kids, they sense everything around. Like it's not just like a direct. You have to access social media, and if you're not accessing it, you're fine. It's become an entire environment. Kids sense and absorb the moods and the whole environment. Like even during the pandemic, they still didn't definitively understand everything that was happening, but kids are like little pets. They can sense the general mood and the atmosphere and the way things change and the way the teachers behave and the attitude and the demeanor of everything around them. And yes, you're right. Tons of kids who are really small are also feeling anxious.
Obviously, there was a huge thing that happened in the last 3 years, right? And like you said, kids are very sensitive to like how adults are reacting.
Emotional sponges, yeah.
Kids are very, very intuitive about their environment and especially the adults that they live with. And then like when they go back to school, other kids that they interact with also, right?
Yeah, like what are those kids bringing to the school? Right. And what are the other kids feeding off of them? Like the things that are happening besides the pandemic. We are having a lot more disagreements. There's a lot more parents that aren't together as units. There's a lot of split families and combined families and things. Because that's just the fact is there's a lot more social confusion. And I
mean, even if they don't have access to social media, I think that kids still hear things. With the news. They hear adults talking, their teachers talking.
And the teachers are having a lot more open conversations.
Yeah, the teachers are talking too, and I think that it's a very difficult time for everybody after the pandemic.
And prior to the pandemic, the anxiety and the moods were worsening already.
Yeah.
And now it's taken a whole nosedive for everybody. Yeah, because you add pandemic to social media and then everything else.
Parents were stressed. They couldn't go to school. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's stress on the parents. No, that's our entire conversation. Every time we talk about anything, it ends up we're talking about this because it's so huge. But
pandemic.
No, just like mood. We end up talking about mood. But that's because I think everything's related to psyche, right? So we start talking about dress code, why it happens the way it does, and we end up talking about psychological stuff because it's all
you were
related.
Talking about how to dress earlier, like when we were shopping, we were talking about how certain women like to dress a certain way, how certain women like certain perspectives of their body, and some women don't.
What you think is acceptable versus what is acceptable in your culture, religion, society.
But who decides that?
And who decides that? Right, because in every country, it's different. Like I told you earlier today, I don't know if people realize, in India, for example, Muslim women around the world have like their own way of dressing. We won't get into all that right now. The other religions and stuff in India, it's not acceptable to show your legs so much, but they all show their navel. And that's normal. 50, 60-year-old women just wearing saris and showing their navels while they're at work. Here in the U.S., the teenager with the navel stuff aside, if it's not summer, then my point is that showing your legs is completely normal here, no matter how old you are here, and that's normal. Mm-hmm. But you don't just baseline go around showing your navel. Why is that body part okay and the other body part's not okay?
Yeah. Who decides which body part?
Who decided which body part?
That is very interesting that you can show one part, then you can't show the other part.
And it depends on what your belief was.
Mm-hmm.
or is, and what just became normal.
Which makes me think that there's still that idea that like the woman's body is sort of just this trophy or prize to look at with, because you're either teasing them with your midriff, or you're going to tease them with your legs, or just your eyes. For some people, what comes to my mind when you're saying these things is that so our bodies in general, just as females, are still in society in general just something for people to look at.
You see, I think it's biological because women are expected, because it is a thing of beauty. I mean, people may not agree with me.
The whole point of us talking about this is that you were trying to figure out where does this sense of wanting to be modest comes from versus not wanting to be modest, and it's not about who's regulating it, but where is that coming from, right?
And what somebody's opinion of modesty is too. Like,
but and also like, why does modest have to connect with fashion or like how someone dresses? Because like, why does the word modesty have to be intertwined with the fact that you might just think this is fashion? If you're wearing a bodysuit outside.
Are we going back to the teenage girl with the skin showing?
That's what I'm saying. Why is it not just fashion? Why is there always this connection with the idea that this female is just trying to show off skin and not be modest?
What you're saying is that why is there a right or wrong?
Right. If I was like a fashion designer, I wouldn't see it as whether or not I can design clothes to be modest or not modest on a woman's body or in a man's body. I would just have a vision of like, to me is art and what is fashion, this canvas, which is this human body, right? Or this form. That's how I see like clothing.
I'm taking the more controversial look at it, and that the female body is attractive thing, and that is why it's more like can be an attention-seeking thing when the body is shown, because of the fact that it is considered a thing of beauty. So when it comes to a woman's body, it's not a canvas.
I think that is what's wrong with that we tend to sort of crucify certain women for looking certain ways, and that's why the terms like that are very derogatory came about, because when we look at someone dressing a certain way, and that's not exactly how our brain computes as actual clothing that we would wear personally, we look at that as something that is attracting some sort of attention, and then like whatever attention, whether it be positive or negative, is their fault. Is that person's fault. That girl did not ask for you to tackle her down the street as she's walking, right? She's just trying to get to where she needs to get to, and she's wearing what it is that she wants to wear. I think that's the problem with society, is that we immediately judge people for how they look all the time, and it might not necessarily be reflective of the person that they are. Because you have to look at other things, like, is this a young person that comes from a home where this is how they dress, this is how the mom dresses, this is how the aunts dress, or maybe they can only access this kind of dress of clothing because they, are socioeconomically not able to access clothes, from a certain type of place that look better or look more refined or modest. I think it's difficult for us to figure out what is modesty and what isn't, because there's just so many other things that we have to take into consideration about like why a person is dressed the way that they are. Because there could be like a millionaire sitting in front of you, but they're dressed like a bum. Or in your version, what a bum is. Which to some people who like to dress up would be like a jeans and a shirt. That's bummy to somebody. Whereas that person might be like, well, this is what I look and feel comfortable in. But they could be a millionaire, right? They could be a very established person, lots of money, but they don't like to dress very refined and business-like all the time, right? And I've come across that being a family doctor. I meet so many different people from different paths of life where they'll come in and they'll be all dressed up in a business suit, and then come to find out they're actually jobless and unemployed and on Medicaid, but they'll come in looking like they work at a Fortune 500 company.
Not judging a book by its cover.
Right? I mean, that's where I'm just at with this whole how do people dress.
Okay, when it comes to my business, and when I see a teenager or a young girl coming in dressed a certain way, can I talk to them about it? Because myself and my nurses usually, especially the nurses, because I see them when they get in the gown and stuff. some of my nurses, their moms have teenagers themselves, and they will say something to that girl, like, why are you dressed like that? Don't dress like that. This and that. Is that okay? I mean,
No.
That's something a mother would do. So can the nurses do that?
No.
Why? Why can't a nurse say, I don't think you should be showing your midriff or within your shorts? Like, in a motherly way. We speak to these children like they're our children because we're all part of the raising of these children.
Which I get. Which I completely understand because I see kids too in adolescence, but I think that that's not part of our job. Like unless the parent asks you for that help and they say in front of the patient says like, hey, like, what's your opinion on this doc? What's your opinion on? And sometimes like parents egg you on too and like put you on the spot. I don't like that game because I'm not here to pick sides. Right? That's not my job as a physician. My job is to inform you and give you knowledge, stuff that I learned and that we recommend as a society of, primary care doctors or pediatricians. I'm not here to give you opinions or share mine. We're here to share decisions with you, to have shared decision making and to inform you what we recommend for your teenager at this age, right? But I don't necessarily tell kids like, hey, like, why do you have that piercing? Or like, why do you dress like that? Don't do that.
That's the interesting part of pediatrics, that some of the medical is shaved off and some of the social kind of the whole child comes into play. For most parents, there is kind of an expectation that we're all kind of in this together. As the child, you're being raised, and part of that raising, part of the village, is there's the teachers, the coaches, the parents, the extended family, and the pediatrician. We're all a team raising this child. So I think that's where it comes in, because they will talk to me about every single thing, medical or non-medical. I end up being a go-to point person for everything to do with this child. That part of it kind of pulls up this expectation of every piece of that kid. And that, I think that is pediatrics. I don't think
it's not, I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is that I think everybody has their different approach. I work with a pediatrician. I work with multiple pediatricians because that's what family medicine, we work collaboratively with other specialists. I work with one weekly. She tells me all the time her experiences with parents and stuff like that. And I think everybody has different approaches. She's also a mother of 2 teenage girls. She'll tell me stories of parents coming in and asking her what she thinks about what her kid is wearing. And then she'll be like, listen, like, I have 2 teenage girls. I get it. But, there's just certain things that I draw the line, right? Because like, I wouldn't want anyone else telling me how to raise my child. Because I'm a pediatrician myself, and having raised 2 daughters, I get your pain. Can we talk about it? Sure. Can we share opinions? Sure. But I will never tell your child, don't do that, because that's sort of like crossing that expectation, that borderline for me as a doctor, where I never tell my adult patients, don't do that, because then that connects to them in a different way, where it's okay, so now you're telling me what to do, right? Or everyone else is telling me what to do. I'm in this safe space for us to share with each other all my deepest and darkest secrets. And I think when you allow them to tell you all their emotions and all the stuff that's going in their life, and then at the end you're like, well, don't do that. Right? It sort of, for me, breaks that trust. And so like maybe rephrasing it in a way that is more safe for these adolescents to hear you and understand you, but not saying don't do that.
Well, no matter what, you never tell anybody don't do that.
Right.
Even if it was like a friend or a family member, you never tell someone,
I get triggered when I hear a nurse telling my patients this. Like, I literally had conversations about me hearing nurses telling patients not to do things. That's when I will be like, hey, that's not your job. Please don't talk to my patient like that. Patients will get upset. Your nurse just said this to me. Mm-hmm. And that affects me a lot. That's not why you came today, to be yelled at.
Yeah, no. No, nobody should ever be yelled at, anybody in their doctor's office. I think it is, and also depends on the community. We're in kind of like a small town community feel, and a lot of people know people from other places. Mm-hmm. For me, no, I never really tell anybody not to do something. I think there is definitely a way to approach people. Like I said, regardless if they're a patient or your friend or your family member, you just wouldn't say something like that. That's just not how you talk to people. But I think influencing people in a positive way, this is how I approach it, because that's just how a community pediatrician is part of families.
Yeah.
And they do look at you for help. I mean, parents, they shouldn't have to feel like they're alone. Oh, I'm just in this alone raising my kid. They look at the pediatrician, somebody they can talk to, somebody can turn to for helping them influence in one way or the other. So many times a day I have parents, if I'm talking to the kid about just anything, even like sleep or diet, they're looking at like, are you listening to her? Can you hear her? Are you, like,
they're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
doctor.
I've been saying this, and they're
like, doctor, tell her to drink more water, tell her to eat more vegetables, and I would kind of laugh about it because I'm like,
they're not going to listen to me. But if
because honestly, you have to, like, you as a pediatrician, remember when you went to your pediatrician, be honest about it. Did you ever really care to hear what your pediatrician told you? No. Because I remember my pediatrician very well. And I used to laugh at his face. Like,
But remember, you were a rebel kid, you said, right?
Yeah, but I was like, why do I have to listen to this extra adult? Why do I have to listen to two adults at home?
I was always, anything anybody says to me, even today, I take so much to heart.
Yeah.
That someone says something and it just, sits with me. So I feel like I'm one of those kids, if a pediatrician said something, I switched to family med doctor when I was in college. Yeah. Just because my dad started seeing him, so I started seeing him too. Not because of the age thing. It was just more convenient. I was tired all the time in college. I was anemic too. And my parents called my doctor and said that she's tired all the time. And he said, well, she needs to get 8 hours of sleep a night. Is she getting that? And at that time, I didn't realize I was getting 6 or 7. So since that day, which was probably 22 years ago, that 8 hours thing has absorbed into my mind, where if I don't get the 8 hours, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't get 8 hours, I must be tired.
But see, like, you're unique in that sense. There's many kids, I want to say 95% of kids these days, where they're just like, they're probably not even listening to you when you're talking.
See, a lot of kids really need to want to come and they talk to me about things. So I don't know.
These kids are different in so many ways in how we grow up. And I think that we sometimes focus so much on how we can control certain things about certain aspects of children's lives, where it's like you're saying, like, you really can't. You have to let them blossom and grow into their own skin and figure out what's right and what's wrong on their own, because you're not necessarily going to always follow every single instruction that you give them, right?
No, and then when they grow up, they realize the adults may have been more right in certain things that they didn't think they were. But I think each generation is raising the next generation, and we do have to be careful by what we're saying and doing and how we're influencing them.
We, for example, are an example of a generation that was raised very structured. Our generation, right? You are the way you are because that's how you were raised. And so that's why it switched. Even Russell Peters was making fun of this when I watched his show like a month ago or 2 weeks ago. He was like, I figured out the reason why we hate Gen Z so much, or why we hate millennials so much, like our generation, like Gen X.
I'm technically a millennial.
Yeah. So he said, I figured that out. I figured out why. And he was joking about it. And he was like, I figured it out because he's like, we did this. We did this to ourselves. Our parents told us growing up that we have to work so hard, work all the time. Live your life the way I tell you to. And we said yes. So this is why we went to school, went to college, did exactly what our parents told us to do. He's like, and then we had our own kids. And then now we're just like letting our kids do whatever they want. And then we're over here complaining about them. But we raised them the way they are because we didn't want them to suffer the way we did.
But now there's an entitlement.
Everyone was just cracking up because everybody knew that was the truth. That's why I was like...
The truth is funny a lot of times.
It's funny because that's how it is. That these kids have it easier than we do because we're not instilling that in them as much, because we hated the way we grew up. We hated the fact that we couldn't go out past a certain time. We had a curfew.
Yeah, we had to like find a phone to call our parents.
Right. Or we were made to go to certain schools.
My school experience, I went to public school, and the kids there, we were a small town community.
Mm-hmm.
There was very few kids that had like a really nice fashion sense, so I had this fashion in me that was bursting to come out, but I was too self-conscious to do it. I felt weird when I wore kind of like the more fashionable clothes that I wanted to, because I was self-conscious. I didn't have confidence to be like, oh, I wear what I want. I was like, oh, but the other kids aren't wearing dresses and boots, so I'm just gonna not do that as much as I want to. And then when I went to college, I was like, yes, people here from all over New Jersey, not just from my small town, and there's so many, and there's even foreign kids. People are wearing what they want, doing what they want. I can just wear whatever I want. Wear all like flared stuff and the fur, and you do change with college based on your school. Yeah. So I think teenagehood is such a tough time. I mean, no matter which way you put it, when you're a teenager, life just kind of stinks.
I mean, yeah, being a teenager sucks in general, but it's like you can't even wear the clothes that you want. It makes it worse, I feel like.
I just keep thinking about all the pressure of picking out an outfit and then people somehow... Like, I remember a couple of instances where I was wearing these boots and this one girl kind of gave me the stare down kind of thing, and as soon as I walked in that day, and it made me feel awkward that I was dressed like that to school. It's something I really wanted to do and self-express, but then I felt awkward the whole day. Oh, I'm getting weird eyes and I'm not fitting in now, and it feels weird not to fit in. Now I don't care, but I'm 41, not 16.
Yeah.
And then there was this one time my sister got me, she knew back then I didn't like t-shirts. Now I love t-shirts, but back then I did not. I thought t-shirts were unflattering. I only wore blouses. So my sister went to Disney World on her class trip. So she got me a Mickey Mouse blouse. And they had this nice material and Mickey's head with black and green. So I wore it to school. I thought it was the cutest thing ever. With a pair of black pants. There was a substitute teacher in chemistry class, so we were all just doing nothing. And the kids behind, I could hear them snickering at my blouse and making fun of it. And it made me feel horrible. Again, if that happened now, I'd turn around and be like, okay, you guys have no fashion sense, so...
Yeah.
Or just ignore it and be like, why don't you have anything better to do than...
Mickey on the blouse is in.
Yeah. But back then, I felt like just humiliated at 16 to have somebody kind of make fun of your blouse. It's always a sense of everyone needs to approve of what I'm doing. And so I just keep thinking about how outfits could make or break your day. And that's a really hard feeling to have. Yeah, I mean, the kids that weren't dressing up or who were making the faces, were they insecure or maybe wanting to do something different but didn't know how or didn't have the means to do it? Or didn't have the insight to do it, didn't have the confidence. So it brings about all these weird teenage thoughts. So I just feel like in some ways it is really hard to be able to wear whatever you want to school, because technically you're not wearing whatever you want. You're wearing what you find to be socially acceptable. So even though I didn't wear a uniform to school, I did feel constricted within what I wanted to be wearing versus what I could feel comfortable with all the other kids in the school. Because when you're a teenager, what everybody else thinks is very important to you.
But I also feel like, and going back to the whole thing, like, I don't think it's just your outfit that makes or breaks your day, right? When I think about also like high school experience that you're talking about, there were girls who would come to school, full on glam, makeup, and hair did, and then there'd be girls like me that just roll and go. You know what I mean? I think that also is part of it. It's connected, not just what you're wearing from here on down, but also like how you present yourself and how you look. Like, is your hair messy? Is it done? And do you have makeup on or not? That's also what I saw in high school. Like, which girls wearing these shoes? Oh, those are cute shoes. Oh, what are those shoes? That's because we didn't really care about hair because everybody was going to see them, and then we'd be like, oh, look, her hair is so nice. Right? Or like, she's always so put together here. Like, her face is always just so perfect. How does that work? I feel like that's part of it also, and not just your outfit. How you look also can make or break your day. If you look up here, people will notice it. They literally will be like, are you okay today? You look ghostly or like pale. They'll notice this first before they notice this.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I've realized throughout the years is that that's literally what people will look at first versus what you're actually wearing. Unless like you're wearing some ridiculous costume, like you're looking like you're going to Comic-Con, then that won't be obvious. And I don't know if you agree with that, because I feel like that's also a big thing. How your appearance is, how you come to work every day, or how you go to school every day. And I remember just thinking about those girls in high school that always looked so put together.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at them now, they still look very put together.
Yeah. I only have like one girl in the entire class in mine that always looks put together and still does.
Yeah, and I remember asking those girls, like, how do you have this time to look like this? What do you do? They're like, oh yeah, I gotta get up at 5:30 and I blow my hair out, and then I put my makeup on.
Yeah, and some people, even now, they get themselves up that early. They can't imagine not looking put together.
That's what I'm saying, but also I think that's just part of that, and not like, because, you know, I thought about your shirt story. Is it just the shirt that people see first, or is it your face? Right, nowadays it's hard with the mask and stuff. People don't really know how each other look. So they care less about this. I think also how you look is a big thing, and not just like what's here. Because half the time I don't think people really remember what you're wearing, like what they see.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that as we grew older and went into adulthood, I feel like that's also a big part of our profession, looking a certain way, so that people look at us and perceive us in a certain way, because we are in a profession where people do look up to us, so that you can't be going into work looking like a bum all the time, right? And we have to tell residents that you literally have to color your hair. Okay.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
That looking is also a constant thing.
Yeah.
And not just part of high school.
Yeah, I mean, we have restrictions in our workplace of what you're supposed to wear and not supposed to wear. We're allowed to wear jeans sometimes on Fridays for certain reasons, but they can't have rips in them.
Yeah, or you're not allowed to wear open-toe shoes. You're not allowed to have fake nails. If you saw a doctor who has a lot of tattoos or has like a lot of piercings, would you still have the same respect for that doctor versus another doctor who doesn't have all of this?
Right? Well, I think that, that kind of mindset's changing. You and me may perceive them differently than maybe the generations above us. Because if somebody had a tattoo and piercings, they automatically would not feel comfortable with them. But you and me know that that doesn't matter. We'll listen to the words they're saying and their knowledge, the comfort. Some people may not.
That's true.
Any final words?
The original question here was about modesty. Who gets to regulate or who started the whole idea that dressing a certain way was more appropriate than the other, right? Like women. Where was the standard built from? Like, how did this happen?
The original idea behind this whole video is the different aspects of why we dress the way we dress. Is it an expectation, a cultural norm, our own comfort? Where does it come from?
Well, it sounds like it comes from all of those.
Yeah.
It sounds like it comes from, like, you individually and what you grew up being expected to dress up like. Yeah. And what the other people around you seem to wear also.
Multifaceted.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
That is why for today's wedding, I wore this gown and Mary wore this dress.
I don't even think it's a dress. It's something I would wear to a meeting.
Dressed exactly like that, and I wore it to a holiday party at work, and I also wear it to work. Whereas I would not wear this to work, not because I don't want to, but because that would be strange.
I think it'd be strange. I think you could wear it to work, and then your little kids would think you're a princess.
I would be a princess.
Yeah, that's what the kids would think. So I don't think it'd be weird for you.
Some people have called me princess at work before, so this would just be, I'd be like the Little Mermaid. She wears green, right?
Would she? I think she just has like a shell. She has a tail, and she has a shell bra.
She gives up her tail for legs because Prince Eric is
like her dress
so
when she
dreamy.
comes out.
Yeah.
I don't remember the color.
I don't remember either.
But yeah, I don't think it'd be weird if you wore that dress to work, because I feel like the little kids would actually find it distracting.
Maybe I'll
with all
wear
the
it for
sparkling.
Halloween and put my hair up in a tiara. Be a
Yeah, but like,
princess.
why would you have to wear it like on a dress-up day? Why can't this just be your regular wear? But this is exactly the point we're trying to say. I'm like, why can't you go to work like this?
I should
Is there a thing that says you're not allowed to wear a gown to work? Yeah, why not?
Alright, everybody, I'm gonna be wearing this. I better change that actually, because it'll be dirty for Monday, so I should reserve it for Monday.
I think the only reason why this might be not weird but uncomfortable for you at work, if you had to go do the delivery or something, watch a C-section,
I have to wear scrubs for that anyway.
that's something that
I could quickly change on.
you couldn't really quickly change out of that because you need someone to unzip you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be taking forever, and they're like, where the hell is this dog?
I'm unzipping my gown.
Sorry,
Hold
I'm
on.
taking my gown off. They're like, what gown? Are you undressed in a hospital gown?
Like, no, this is what I wore to the office. Get woke.
All right, everybody.
Alright,
Eminem
thanks
sign out.
everybody. I'm signing out. Good night.